Hello, my name is Dr. Laura, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I co-own a group practice, and my passion is working with people who have experienced abuse and neglect in childhood and have developed trauma disorders as adults, whether that's complex PTSD or dissociative disorders. I have been doing this for a good 20 years now, and I have learned so much, both from other professionals, but also from each and every one of my clients. And as I am nearing the middle of my career, I am thinking that I would really love to share some thoughts with all of you about some of the things I've learned and some of my observations. And I'm also open to hearing your thoughts and observations, whether you are also a clinician working with clients, or whether this is personal, whether this applies to your life or people you know, or maybe even both. So, yeah, enjoy and let me know what you think. Now that we've arrived at part 4, we are finally going to get to find out what is a narcissistic family system. In order to do that, I'm going to have to explain what the heck is a narcissistic defense. And that is important because we will go on to talk about these things, especially narcissistic defenses, in great detail, at least through part 5. Narcissistic defenses are the coping skills children develop in homes where there is a significant amount of narcissistic abuse and neglect. These coping skills serve 4 purposes. 1, these are attempts to prevent or stop narcissistic abuse and neglect. 2, these are attempts to avoid trauma-related stimuli, that is, interactions that make an individual feel the shame and humiliation they have felt in the worst moments of the abuse. 3, attempts to be valued by other family members. When there's a lot of narcissistic abuse, underneath everyone, that's their value, and so there's constant attempts to seek a sense of value. And 4, to get attachment needs met, which can be very tricky in narcissistic family systems. So, what is a narcissistic family system? A narcissistic family system is a family where everyone in the family routinely uses narcissistic defenses to avoid narcissistic abuse and neglect. It is possible that at least one of the parents is not objectively a victim of narcissistic abuse or neglect. However, one or both parents may feel victimized when they are triggered by someone else in the family, and they may experience flashbacks of that shame and humiliation we talked about that makes them believe that they are a victim of the other person involved, even if objectively speaking, the other person is not being abusive. This is because, like I talked about in earlier sections, usually the parent in this case, or the teenager, sometimes this happens too, does not know that they are distressed mostly because of flashbacks and early childhood stuff. They blame the other person who caused them to have the feeling temporarily. So the parents, as well as older children and teens, will use these narcissistic defenses not only to avoid the abuse and the neglect, but to avoid the flashbacks of it from when they were little and were helpless, because that's when it's the worst, when you are experiencing that abuse and neglect, or you were seeing it happen among the people around you and you are helpless to do anything. That is the most disorienting. So yeah, so that's that. And then a second point here, while one parent may have narcissistic personality disorder, they may not. Both parents may have it, neither parent may have it. But either way, if there is abuse and neglect happening, it is a narcissistic family system. So why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about narcissistic family systems instead of narcissistic personality disorder? I mean, honestly, here's the thing. Narcissistic personality disorder is mostly a description of behaviors, or what people around the person, how they experience somebody who's diagnosed that way. And also, there's a ton out there online and everywhere else about people who meet the criteria for the disorder. But what I wanted to kind of, I want to be one of the people that add to the discussion that most of the behaviors that make up narcissistic personality disorder are defenses in the way I just talked about. So they're a combination of self-protective strategies and attempts to meet unmet needs from childhood, both for attachment, like we just discussed, but also for value. Because feeling valued, a child cannot feel valued when the parent cannot see them due to neglect, cannot see who they are. And a child cannot feel valued when a parent has contempt for them. And so even if there's other moments a child does feel valued, that is a very vulnerable thing that a child and then the adult that child becomes is constantly trying to shore up. So that's about the parents, especially a parent that may have NPD. But here's the thing. Every child in a narcissistic family system needs to use those narcissistic defenses. Not only the children that might grow up and fit the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, because every child in the home is at risk. So when talking about narcissistic family systems, I wanted to talk about just some observable dynamics that are common in narcissistic family systems. Not all narcissistic family systems have each of these characteristics, but they're going to have some of them. I wanted to start with extreme favoritism because this was one of the things that introduced me to narcissistic family systems. I had clients that would tell me stories of just incredibly dramatic inequity among siblings. Not surprisingly, it's usually the scapegoats of the family that end up in therapy. Not always, but often. And I would hear these stories about how they would have these terrible, terrible things happen to them. And they would be, victims both physically and mentally and even sexually in this very contempt-filled way. And meanwhile, they would watch siblings who literally never had a hand laid on them. Or, they would be neglected financially, or not financially, like basic needs wise, and their health would be neglected. Meanwhile, a sibling would get everything they needed. And I think that extreme discrepancy is actually, I've learned when I hear about that now, I'm like, aha, we are in a narcissistic family system. Another characteristic of narcissistic family systems that I think this one's actually almost near universal is that some people are valued more than other people within the family. Within the family and always without exception outside of the family. Like on a good day, everyone in the family may be seen as superior and wonderful and whatever in some way, but it's always in comparison to those people, and those people could be any kind of people. Which is why I say here, this could be a traditional hierarchy based on patriarchal beliefs, meaning like, the man is the head of the house, the man has the power, the children are just children, so they have to be seen and not heard, or at least be very submissive. But it's not always hierarchy like that. Pretty much anything the parent values can be used for splitting people in the family between like the good kids, the bad kids, the good kid, the bad parent, and there can be power differentials. So that's another one. A third one, and again, this is really common, maybe not universal, but super common, is this idea of the perfect image. So no matter what's happening at home, the family and everyone in it must portray an image to perfection to people outside of the home. This is something I've had many, many clients describe to me as well, how there could be terribly, horrifically abusive things happen, but then the parent would make sure that things were just exactly in place in the outside world. So another thing that's common with these families is like, that fits with that is like, a parent could be abusive in the home, but makes a big point of being well respected as someone in the community and this affects, how the family is seen. Like the parent may be a teacher or a church leader or something, someone who is high status,
due to their success with their business or something else, or financially. So on the outside, things look really great, but on the inside, not so much.
An additional trait of narcissistic family systems is this preoccupation with blame. So most family arguments revolve around who is to blame. And the abuse is usually justified by focused on the victim's either flawed actions or even at times their just flawed nature. But who is at fault is a constant concern. The second one is this idea that your value is conditional and earned. So you always are in the process of proving your worth to the person in the narcissistic family system who has the most power, which could be one parent, it could be both parents, it certainly could be one sibling over other siblings, but you need to prove yourself to that person. And whatever is required to prove yourself, again, this could be anything. It's wholly arbitrary. And another one, this is somewhat related to the hierarchy thing, but there's a constant competition. There's not enough positive attention and value and affirmation to go around. And so you feel an internal pressure to compete with other people to prove your value and your worth. When I've heard clients talk about this, it's like I'm almost picturing that there's a relatively small pot of soup with 8 children trying to eat the soup. Like that's how positive regard and attention work in these families. The next one is black and white thinking, especially around issues of blame again. So you are right or you are wrong. You're good or bad. You're perfect or you're a failure. You're dominant or you're submissive. You're a winner or you're a loser. You're smart or you're stupid, etc., etc. And then the final one, this isn't true for all narcissistic family systems, but it is true for some of the most difficult ones. And this is this idea that belonging is not guaranteed. Despite being born into the family, you may be threatened with expulsion, either implicitly or explicitly, if you do not conform to what the person who has power in your family wants from you. And most parents know they can't simply put their child out on the street, though sometimes a narcissistic family system, some of these families do put their teens on the street who do not conform. So cutoffs between adult children and their parents are common and initiated by both parents. And I respect it if you're an adult child who, for your mental health, needs to make that break. I'm not saying it is the same thing as somebody cutting you off in an abusive way. But for various reasons, healthy and unhealthy, cutoffs and these kinds of stricter boundaries are really common. Thank you for listening to part 4 of my presentation on narcissistic family systems. Now I've laid the groundwork to explain what are these coping skills that kids learn to use. What are the narcissistic defenses? And the next couple of sections, 5 and 6, perhaps into 7, will be devoted to that. See you soon.